Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday, which is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to chat about whatever it is we want to chat about. And today, my very special guest is author Margo Thomas, who was a longtime Tallahassee resident, but now she's in Jacksonville. And I miss seeing her lovely face and experiencing her spirit here in the Tallahassee area. But I'm so glad to have her tonight. We are talking about how to get around to end of life planning. She has a new book that she is releasing soon. And so this conversation is around, again, end of life planning. So I know it might not be hot and sexy, but it is needful and meaningful and something that we need to do. So before I bring her on, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as on my LinkedIn page. This is interactive. So both on all three of those platforms, your comments, your questions are welcome. So please, please, please engage with us tonight. So I see a few people chiming in. Tammy Austin, hello. Thank you for joining us. My mom is on down in Miami. Thank you for being here. So y'all, please like, share, tag, let folks know they need to be on here, because I'm sure even though you may have done some end of life planning for yourself or for a loved one, there's probably something you may have missed. So we're going to go over all of the ins and outs of it. All right. So again, please like, please share, please tag, let folks know they need to be on here. Oh, we got somebody. Philippa Bahamas in the house. All right. So Margo is Bahamian. So I love that. I guess it's one of your Bahamian friends maybe is in the house. So that's wonderful. So thank you for being here. All right. So, oh, why does it keep doing that? All right, here we go. So there. Oh, so I'm gonna go ahead and read some of Margot's bio, which is she is an author, speaker, and certified coach. When her husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she was grateful they had already discussed their thoughts about death years before. She was even more grateful that her husband took the time to create a password bank that included his usernames, passwords, etc. Although she was grieving her loss, she still had to take care of everyday tasks, such as figuring out what charges would be coming out of which bank account and changing services from his name to hers. Although seemingly simple, these tasks were more difficult while grieving, but having access to the information she needed helped tremendously. In her communication with other widows and widowers, Margot realized that not everyone is as fortunate. Some are left to figure out the details while grieving. From her perspective, it seems that they usually have a more difficult time finding peace because they are so overwhelmed with their to-do list. So Margot created the I Wish I Had Time End of Life Planner to help families start those difficult conversations now. So y'all help me welcome Miss Margo Thomas. Yay!
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Margot, tell the people, who is Margo Thomas? We didn't really talk about what you do. We talked more around kind of how the book got started and your experience. So, tell us a little bit about who you are in your own words.
All right. Well, obviously, I'm a widow. I am a mother of one. Well, I'm called Gigi by my grandkids. I'm a sister, daughter, friend. I like to have fun. Um, I like to laugh. I'm a clown sometimes.
Mhm.
But let's see, I like to travel. I like to eat. And so that's one of the good things of being in Jacksonville is I'm exploring a lot of new restaurants and, you know,
Mhm.
probably putting on a little bit more weight than I want to, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's a lot of good restaurants in Jacksonville for sure.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. All right, cool. And this is not your first book. You've written a few others. So, share with the viewers a little bit about the other books that you've written.
Okay. So I started out with college prep. Most of my books, well, two of my books are related to college prep. The others are related to grief. I have one a fiction book that was it's called When Fate Whispers. It was a an anthology with some other authors. And let's see, I've done some collaborations with other authors to do journals and just letters to our spouses, a number of things like that.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. So, no stranger to being an author at all. Right.
Not at all.
All right. And so I don't know if you have a copy of the book, and I should have told you to do this, but if you have it handy, if you could hold it up so folks can see it. All right. So I wish I had time, end of life planner, which is coming out when?
Is coming out June 9th.
Okay. So
But
right.
they can pre-order it using the link. They can pre-order it and get an autographed copy.
All right. So I'm going to put the link up, but it is in the comments. So you can check out the link and definitely get you a copy. We'll mention this again towards the end of the broadcast, but I'm putting it up now for folks that might not be around at the end. There are a few more folks that have joined us. Lynette with the Bahamian flag up. I love it. So I think I may have told you, Margot, I have some Bahamian roots on my mother's side. So I'm feeling all the love from the book
242.
tonight. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, Alex S. in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you for joining us. My sister down in South Florida. Thank you for being here. And is that Alex again? Alexandria Sears Grant in Ohio. Okay, maybe. I don't know.
Yes, same person.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So look, I appreciate you being on there twice. On Facebook. Thank you, Alexandria. And Brittany, who is here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being here, Brittany. She said, yes, me again. All right, wonderful. No, we need all the views we can get. So thank you. All right. So I talked a little bit about your experience in the bio in terms of like, what you went through and kind of how you um felt or in what you were dealing with at the time. But talk to us a little bit about like how you even get to writing this book about it.
Well, initially, I realized since my husband did what he did before he passed, which was allowing me to have all the passwords, usernames, and everything like that, it made life easier for me.
Mhm.
And so, what I was looking at for before I wrote the book, I was looking for something like it that I could provide the same information for my daughter, along with, whatever my wishes were. And so I bought another one. I bought a book. I looked at a couple of other ones, and while they were good, I mean, they gave you the space to provide that information. But I figured with the type of conversations that you would usually have as a related to end of life planning, that it would have been so much better to have some examples, kind of guide people through the process. And I think the teacher hat came on, and I decided that I would just write one myself. And obviously I would give it to my daughter, but I figured, well, since I'm already a published author and I already know what the process is, why not do it and sell it to other people?
Okay, wonderful. And so you have made this book a planner because you want it to be a tool that folks can use, right?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive in. So you and I kind of talked pre-broadcast about some of the things that are needful when you're doing the end of life planning. And I think the one that's mentioned in the bio is about those usernames and passwords. So I want to throw out to the viewers, and I don't know if anybody has had to do any end of life planning for a loved one, whether it's a relative or a friend, but those usernames and passwords can be critical for trying to get stuff done, right?
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I know for me, just changing things over from his name to my name, or just trying to figure out which, I mean, even though all of our, we had one bank account,
Mm-hmm.
each of us had a separate debit card,
Mm,
and figuring out, okay, whose debit card was used for what,
yeah.
and being able to switch them over before his debit card was closed out. And some of them I missed, but
Mm,
there weren't that many that I needed to figure out after the fact.
gotcha. Let me ask you this. Has this experience with your husband again cause you to think about yourself and you having these things in order, like you said, for your daughter?
Yes, yes, it
Mhm.
has. Because I guess for me growing up, I didn't have a whole lot of people that I remember, dying to that extent, right?
Mm,
I mean, obviously there were, but not that close to me that I thought about it so much. And
gotcha.
then, as the younger you are, the less likely you're thinking about these things.
Right.
But him getting sick and then his death was really eye opening for me, because it put death right in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me totally aware that these are things that my daughter would have to do when it comes to me at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm all for making things a little bit easier, and so I decided that it would be best to give her the tools that she would need, so
Mm.
that it's not so overwhelming, it's not so stressful in the process.
Nice. No, agreed. And it's great that you have done that. We do have someone else who's joined us, Dr. Eduardo Williams, who's here in Tallahassee. Thank you for tuning in. And so I am, again, not the most happy topic, but it is
Right,
very needful because, as was stated, when your loved one passes, you are grieving.
right.
And so to have to now kind of manage the grieving, and that's what our show actually on Monday was centered around, kind of how to deal with life's challenges. But it's specifically, we talked about loss and death and grieving, but dealing with that and now trying to handle the business of the affairs of this person. And so
Right.
having these things in order just makes that a little bit easier, or maybe in some cases a lot easier,
A
correct?
lot easier. A lot. Because I mean, I'm familiar. I talk with other widows and widowers, and I think more widows than widowers
Mm-hmm.
seem to have the overwhelm seems to be a little bit more for women, because you're dealing with, a lot of times the man was handling a lot of the things, and
Mm,
now that person is stuck with trying to figure out what, I mean, something as simple as paying bills.
yeah.
Those are things that not all of us have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to navigate all of that when you don't know is difficult. And
Yes.
then especially when you don't even feel like doing it. I mean, a lot of times you don't even feel like getting up out of bed. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that part. So one of the other things that we talked about was important numbers that you might need to have, right? Whether that is the insurance company's number
Mhm.
or the bank account name and account numbers and that sort of thing, being a beneficiary on
Right.
the account so you don't have to, go through any type of
Probate.
with having to get access to, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of those records that you might need to at least know where they are?
So I think about safe deposit boxes, like
Mm,
where are they? What's in it? What's the contents of it? Numbers for, a lot of times, like I'll say, for example, when my aunt passed away some years ago, she'd always talk about life insurance, right? And so, but when the time came, I mean, we turned our house upside down and we could not find a life insurance policy.
wow.
And so, thankfully, she had a few dollars on a bank account that we
Mm-hmm.
were able to go in and do some of the things that needed to be done. Now, she was at least good enough with, she had already had a plot paid for.
Mm,
She had done pre planning, but then there was some issues with that. So we still had to find the money to do some of the things that was needed. So,
right.
life insurance policies, it's, you know, what type of life insurance you have,
Right.
who
Is
to
it fair?
call,
Yeah, is it fair for whole life?
yes, like who to call. If you have, even think about, you got to call the person's job. If your spouse was working, you have to call the person's job. You
Mm-hmm.
have to call clients if they were a business owner and they have clients. You need to figure those out.
Mm,
Now, maybe in this worksheet, you may not necessarily have all of the clients because things change as you go
right.
along, but at least know where to find information related to clients that you're working with, how to
Mm,
get into your computer, you
mm,
know, to even your computer, your email, to even reach out to those people to
right.
say, hey, this person has passed away, and just kind of navigate all of the details that come along with that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed. So again, I'm curious around the viewers that are tuning in, if any of you have had to navigate any of that, and can you relate to some of what we're talking about in terms of not having the information, or maybe you did have the information and it just made the experience that much better for you. So if you will in the chat, let us know, let us know, let us know. I see Miss Tracy Golay has joined us, who is here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being here, Tracy. We are talking about how to get around to end of life planning, and we chose this title because people say, oh, I'll get around to it, right? I'll get around to getting that uh, funeral, that burial plot, or I'll get around to making that will or that advance directive, or, filling out the information to have a health surrogate, or whatever the case may be. I'll get
Mhm.
around to it because those things are pressing to us right now.
Right.
And if we won't ever get around to it.
Right.
So
Right.
we need you to get around to it now, right?
Right. And even just having the conversations with family. I mean, and I think that's one of the hopes for the book as well, and for the planner as well, is that people talk.
Yes.
It's just have those conversations. And, don't wait till you get around to it to
Yeah.
have the conversation. Have the conversation as soon as possible.
Yes. So a question also too, since nobody is responding in the comments, but that's okay. How many of you have had these types of conversations with your family members? How many of you? Let us know in the comments. I will say that I have me and my parents, my sister, my son, we have had what we call family meetings. And so at our family meetings, we've actually talked about what we have, like who our doctors are, what medicines we're on, where are our bank accounts. I have sought to write a lot of that stuff down, but we need to do that on at least an annual basis, I feel like.
Yes.
So, where's the safety deposit box key?
Yes.
And which bank is it in? And what kind of annuity or insurance you have? So, all of that stuff is
Yeah.
things that we need to be talking about with our family members. And
Yeah.
I think, we gather at certain times of the year, typically Thanksgiving.
Funeral. A lot of time funerals and
A lot
weddings.
of times funerals, but yes, but maybe on a more happy occasion, maybe we get together around holidays or somebody's
Mhm.
birthday or what have you. And so instead of it all just being all fun and games, always watching TV, always
Right.
going shopping or going out to eat, some of that time we need to spend unpacking some of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, definitely. And then I think too, because so I think of it like with me, with my daughter and my husband. Well, my daughter wasn't my husband's biological
Mhm.
child. And
Mhm.
so having those conversations for us with both of them worked for a lot, because I didn't want, like always said, I wanted to be cremated. I
Mhm.
don't see any point in putting 10,000, $20,000 in the ground, right?
Mhm.
But I wanted to have the conversation with both of them, because of course I'm telling him this, but then she may come and say, oh, no, 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 you're not going to do that with my mama. So I didn't want that to ever be a problem. And then I think about, you know, family dynamics change so quickly when there's a death.
Mhm.
You know, when I think of, even when you think about parents and kids, like biological parents and kids, there's
Mhm.
fighting sometimes. When you think about parents and stepkids, there's fighting there.
Yep.
No matter how, you find that there are people where, say, I took care of a child from young, right? I got into to marriage with a man. He had kids, young kids. I grew them up,
Mhm.
and I grew them up as my kids, and I was always their mother. And
Mhm.
then we get here, and then there's this argument about, well, all of this is supposed to be for me,
Mm.
or there's that constant battle over, what should I get, what should you keep, you
Mm.
know and so there's that. But then there's also that of, a lot of people, we're now in this stage where a lot of people are saying, marriage is just a piece of paper.
Mm.
And I think, and I make a note in the planner, is, what happens to my unmarried spouse? Like, because then, if you're not married
Right.
and that person dies, well, then the parent or the children then make decisions that you can't make, because legally you can't.
Yes, that is a very, very good point. We have a few folks that have commented, so I want to shed some light on the things that they had to say. My mom said yes when my brother died, and that was a life changing experience for all of us because my mom was the caretaker. Not my husband, my uncle did not have a spouse, nor did he have any children. So my
Mhm.
mother was the executor over his affairs, and so she had to get knee deep into everything.
Yeah.
And so, and still is there's some, things, and this has been, gosh, I think it was 2013, so
Oh,
almost 11,
wow.
11 years
Yeah.
later, but there's still things that she's dealing with, but it's affected her family in terms of her nucleus because we went through all of that with her as she was
Right.
going through it, being his caregiver and that sort of thing. So yes, and that has affected us in terms of making us more aware. And so my sister said yes, helping mommy with our uncle's things, and
Mhm.
we have our family meetings. Philippa, she said, good evening all, I have had that experience. Okay, thank you for sharing. Alex, I have not, but Arthur, Margo, Thomas plan a release. We are having them now. Okay, wonderful. All right. Alex Williams is on with us and down in Miami Gardens. Thank you for joining us. All right. And Hep Richardson, it is certainly a difficult topic. However, since discussing this planet with Margo, it has made my husband and I have those difficult conversations. Wonderful. Well, that's exactly what we want to happen and exactly why we're having this conversation
Right.
tonight. So you mentioned how things could change, especially amongst blood family versus non-blood family, and things can go really south really quickly, in death because of possessions. Like
Yes.
people
Stuff.
believe that they're entitled to things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. You and I didn't even talk about that, but that's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even for the person, like I'm in a grief group, and I listen to people talk about, their experiences. And
Mm,
sometimes you have wives that, I mean, even it may be their blood kids who will say, well, no, the child will say, hey, well, I want some of daddy's jackets. And it's like, no, 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 I'm not ready to give them up yet. And
mhm,
and so then that's a source of contention where something like jackets, just give them away, give them to your kids. I don't
mm,
see that. I mean, it's just stuff. But I think sometimes we hold on to those things because there's a fear of losing that person. And I mean, and I get it. For some people it's like, okay, clearing out the whole closet may be too much too soon, depending on how long it is that they have to do it. I know for me is I had to do it quicker than maybe I had thought about it because I was moving,
right.
but it made me feel better giving them to family and friends because, now I see a family member or a friend wearing a shirt that belonged to him, and it's like, oh, I have on my Baron shirt today, or, I mean, it makes me feel good that I gave it to someone that would cherish it.
Right.
But keeping it, I mean, how long do you keep it in the closet?
Good question.
Yeah.
All things to think about, right? But
Yes.
it's their, rightfully it's theirs to do what they will with it. Now,
Right.
I think some of that you mentioned going to counseling. I think that's where sometimes maybe counseling may come in, right?
Yes.
Is this a healthy relationship with these possessions based on your attachment or feelings or thoughts about your deceased loved one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm,
And then
mhm,
you find like there are times that people would say, well, I don't think your husband would want you to be suffering like this, or,
mhm,
I don't, I think your husband would want you to be happy. And I'm finding a lot of widows are like, well, how you know that, you know,
mm,
um,
mhm.
but it's kind of like, okay, we're holding on to these things,
Yeah,
but that's not bringing the person back. And that, I mean, to me, it's pass it on,
yeah.
let the gift keep giving.
What do y'all think? What do y'all think? I'm gonna get the audience involved. Should you is it do you think it's healthy to hold on to all of the possessions of your deceased? I mean, and I'm gonna say spouse for that matter. Do you think that's healthy? Let us know in the comments. No judgment. It's a safe space. Just want to get a poll from you. Let us know. Marcus Boston, who is also an author in the Tampa area, he said, I know someone dealing with this now. They may end up in court. Ooh, that's heavy. Golly. Over some stuff?
Yeah,
Really?
over some stuff. It's crazy. So here's an example. I met this lady, older lady. She said her husband, so she was with him for maybe 15 years or something like that. Well, no, I think it was longer.
Mm-hmm.
And but he has two adult sons.
Okay.
When he passed, he left the house for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
However, there was a stipulation that they couldn't put her out.
Mm,
So they don't get the house until she passes away.
mm,
And she says, the young men don't show up, they don't check on her, they don't do anything.
mm,
They pop up if a permit is pulled for the house.
mm-hmm.
Um, if something like that, they would come on and they're not checking in on her. They're
Right.
checking in on the house because they want to know what's going on with the house.
Okay.
And so there's, it's stuff. But I think of, if he had not made that plan, they probably would have put her out by now.
Wow. Probably. Probably. So I think what you said is important to think about the life of your living spouse, right? And what type of quality of life you want them to have.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Philippa said something else to think about. Loss is not always associated with death. It can be through divorce or separation. It's something to think about. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked about on Monday losses of different types, but there's a grieving that goes along with that. And
Yes.
so, are you grieving in a way that's healthy to you, or is it, mm, how do I
Counterproductive.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, I mean, grief is just, I believe, a natural part of life. But in terms of like holding on to all of their possessions, I don't know. I don't know how healthy that is.
Right.
So I would question that. Ultrasound made easy. Miss Yo Yo is on. Thank you for joining us. She said, I don't think it's healthy to hoard everything.
Yes.
There are definitely others that have love as well.
Right.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
All right. So, real quick, we are about halfway through our conversation. For those of you who are just joining us, I am on with author Margo Thomas, and we are talking around how to get around to end of life planning. She has this wonderful book. Hold the book up one more again, entitled I Wish I Had Time, End of Life Planner. And in this book, not only does she give you things that you forms and checklists or what have you that you will need for end of life planning, but she talks a little bit about her experience with the transition of her husband.
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. All right. Oh my goodness. She says, sorry, my kids keep pressing buttons on my phone. It's okay. It's all good. So some of the other things that need to be considered when you are doing this end of life planning are, if you have a business, maybe a continuity plan or
Hmm.
succession planning. Again, a lot of times those things we'll get around to one day,
Right.
but if you have some type of continuity plan, some type of succession plan, again, that'll make it easier for your loved one to
Right.
assist with that piece.
And they should know where it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marcus, he said, honestly, I don't know what I'd do if my spouse died. I'm not married. However, I do have a few keepsakes, such as my sister's contact still in my phone, although she passed 3 years ago. Okay. And that's fine. I mean, that's you to have that her contact on your phone. Heck, I have some old voice messages from some of my deceased loved ones that I might play every now and again. Just you
Yeah.
know, so I just
Yeah.
want to hear their voice. But I'm talking about you got a whole closet full of that person's clothes and shoes and hat and scarf and whatever.
Right.
I don't know if that's healthy. I mean, somebody else could be utilizing it,
Right.
especially talking about years that you are holding on to this stuff,
Right.
you
And
know?
I mean, some of those things dry rot after a while.
They
Now,
do.
I have seen, I went to someone's house one day
Mhm.
and he had gotten, or his wife had gotten like old t-shirts of her mom
Mhm.
and made a quilt.
Quilt. Not I have some t-shirts that I didn't want to let go of, and mom
Mhm.
made a quilt for me.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
I
something
mean, that's
that's a way to
something.
preserve it. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
People make stuffed animals for kids,
Mhm.
with some of the pieces. But for
Yes.
the most part, it's like, there's only so much of that stuff you can keep.
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right, we got a few more people that have joined us. Marlene, thank you for being here down in South Florida. And my cousin Marcella, who is in Virginia, thank you for joining us. You 2 for 2 this week, Marcella. And then Alex said, I feel like if you are not using it, you should sell, donate, or trash. All
I
right.
agree.
Thank you for sharing,
I
Alex.
agree.
Marlene said, I know that it's not mature, but I don't like it when my mom starts talking about end of life planning. So I understand that it can be challenging
Yes.
in terms of not wanting to think about your loved one not being here, but I do believe that it will, how do I want to say this? I think you will feel better in terms of knowing what her desires are, and if it's all written out like this planner hopefully will help you do, when that time comes, I think it'll make you have give you a sense of peace in some regards, because now you're trying to carry out how she wants to be remembered and how she wants that transition to go.
Right.
So if you look at it like that, in terms of, I'm helping her move to this next phase, in the way that she would like it to transpire, with the people that she loves the most, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Mhm,
And it makes life easier I think it makes life easier for them and for you.
mhm,
And then even when you think about, I mean, it's just the thought of having to think about these things and
mm,
having the conversations. And although they may
mhm.
be difficult initially, but I think the more you have these conversations, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's
Right.
never going to be easy. But I
Mhm,
think the more you have the conversations, the easier it gets. And and I wouldn't say that it's immature, because I think we all have that fear of, what happens when.
mhm,
But knowing for the most part what that person really wants rather than having to guess later on would make it, I think it gives you a little bit more peace and a
mm,
little bit more comfort as you're going through. Because I remember, when a friend of mine, her husband passed, and we were talking about food for the repast. Or I was talking to a sibling about food for the repast.
mhm,
And it was like, oh, I mean, why is there so concerned of whether it's chicken or, what type of chicken it was?
mhm,
And I said, well, I mean, in this moment, that's the only thing she has control over.
mm,
So, so the chicken is while the chicken for you is not a big deal, for her it is. So let her have whatever chicken she wants, and let it work through. But if you had that conversation and mom says, well, you know what? Um, I want Aunt Linda to make the macaroni.
mhm.
Don't let Aunt Linda make the macaroni for the repast. Although it won't matter to her when that time comes.
Right.
Maybe she just wants to be sure that that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Or, maybe your mom has a favorite song
Mhm.
that she may say, well, you know what, I want this played, at my memorial, funeral, whatever it is. Or, I mean, because I think about, so like I mentioned to you last night, the Caribbean, right? Well,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say the Caribbean, I'm gonna say the Bahamas.
Okay.
We have a big deal about, we think about coordinating outfits,
Yes.
right? And so it's like, oh, well, this person likes this color, or we're all going to wear blue because that's this person's favorite color.
Right.
Or, we're not going to dress up. Everybody's going to wear t-shirts.
Mhm.
Well, for that person to say, well, you know what? Don't worry about color. Wear whatever you want to wear. Come as you are. I don't
Right.
care. You don't have to be dressed up. You don't have to be this, jeans and a t-shirt, whatever. I think it makes it a little bit easier for the family, because one is now you're not spending a whole lot of money trying to find something that coordinates that way,
Mhm.
or you realize that that may not even be that important.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got quite a few comments. Let me scroll back. All right. Miss Anna said there is a process to use in sorting things to release. And Miss Coach Anna was my guest on Monday. So thank
Okay,
you for being here. She said, consider no time period for releasing things. For the griever, sorry, it is advised not to rush on I think she meant on making major decisions.
I agree.
Okay. All
I
right.
agree. I agree. I mean, and yeah, because it is a process. It is a process,
Mm,
and as you're going through that process, you figure out what things are really important to do in that moment and what things are not. and
indeed.
and I find going through it, like I said, for me, I did a lot of things faster
Mhm.
than sometimes I think I should have. So
Yeah.
like packing up the house, selling a house, moving a house, leaving a job, all of that stuff happening within, I want to say, a 6 months period. It was a lot. And then when I finally, unpacked and all that stuff and sat in it for a little while, I realized that I'd been moving so much
Mm,
that, the grief kind of elevated in that moment, because now I'm sitting here and it's like, okay, I'm not busy. There, all of these to do things for the most part are mostly done.
mm-hmm.
And then it all just came crashing down in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, okay, I'm not busy. It's in my face in this moment. So yeah,
Mm,
I totally agree um, with Coach Woods, where it's, don't rush the process.
right.
But I still think there needs to be conversations about them, because we become attached to the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anna said also, my parents made all decisions prior to their death. It was indeed much easier to execute their wishes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Miss Jeanette, she said, thank you for being here, Miss Jeanette. She's in Miami Gardens. She said, I purchased the booklet, Five Wishes for Individuals to Document How They Want to Be Cared For as They Reach End of Life Health Issues. As far as planning for distributing possessions, a list of the possessions can be made available for the executor to distribute them. A list of people to contact should be available. Yes. Again, all things that are mentioned in the book. The thing that I like about it, it is all in one place,
Yes.
that you can just so readily access it. All right. Yo Yo said, my dad's wife of 1 month asked me if I wanted my dad's ashes in a necklace. I love my dad dearly, but that was too much for me. My dad asked to be buried next to my brother, but he's currently sitting on a mantle. He died unexpectedly and didn't have a plan. So my stepmom is running the show regardless of his wishes. It's sad. Mm,
And I will say, so with that, that's a good point. One of the things I say is that this book does not replace a will, or any of the legal documents. It goes along with it,
indeed.
because there are, obviously, in certain cases, the wife or the spouse trumps kids or whoever. And I see, I'm not sure if Yo-Yo is a male or a female.
A female, Yolanda
Female.
by Yo Yo.
Okay. All right. So I mean, so she says that the wife is 1 month, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Philippa said, I am not comfortable with buying a plot or planning my end time service, but I would prefer to maybe journal what I would like rather than talking about it. Yeah, that's fine.
That's
That's
fine as long as it's there.
yeah.
As long as it's there. I mean,
Mm,
a lot of people do like kind of buying the plots and all that stuff.
mm,
I personally wouldn't do it. And I think when my aunt passed away, it added to that reasoning.
mm,
My granduncle passed away. He had the plot, he had the funeral, all of the stuff he had paid for. When my aunt passed away, she had done the same thing.
mm-hmm,
But the funeral home that she worked with,
mm-hmm.
when she died, and we went to reach out to them. Well, the funeral director was in jail for embezzling the funds.
Uh-oh.
And so the new people who bought it, they, I mean, obviously they weren't going to give it to us for free, but
Hmm.
they at least they gave some discount, and they tried to help as much as they could, but we still had to pay for it.
Hmm.
So there's there's that fear of, okay, if I put all this money into this, what happens at the end if it doesn't happen?
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Coach Anna said, we must allow time to grieve. Indeed. Coach Anna is a grief coach. Sharice the Voice has joined us. Happy Wednesday. She's in the Atlanta area. Thank you for being here. And Dallamore Smith said yes. So I'm not quite sure what you were saying yes to, Dallamore. So if you don't mind letting us know. All right. So again, we're talking about how to get around the end get around to end of life planning, Margot has a book that is a end of life planning tool, but also shares some of her stories based on her experience through the death of her husband. One of the things again that you and I talked about, and you mentioned this just now about the funeral arrangements in terms of any particular colors or songs or program or the handling of the services. There's a particular funeral director or what have you.
Right.
Oh, Delamar said, I was agreeing with giving yourself time. Yes, agree. Indeed. Give
Yes.
yourself time. But there are other things that you also need to consider as well, especially if you have children, if you have not only human children, but pets, fur babies, as I call them. And
Yes.
so is and not if it's not a spousal type situation, do you have a particular loved one that you want, for instance, your pet to go to, or would you send them to a shelter, or if you wanted them to be adopted? Again, all of these types of things are
Right.
things that you want to care for, because this is, that life impacts so many other aspects
Yeah.
of other people and pets lives as
Mhm.
well, right?
Right. And the person has to be not only able to, not only willing to, but able to. Because so I think about when Byron died, we had an older dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to think, and and Scooby was here for a year afterwards. He passed away the year after. But
um
I had to think about, if something had happened to me before,
mm-hmm.
what would happen to him? Well, one of my grandkids is allergic to pet dander.
Mm.
So when he comes to my house, we Benadryl him down
Oh,
because
wow.
he's breaking out. All of his skin is breaking out. He's sneezing and all that. So
Mm.
I couldn't expect for my daughter to take the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see the dog being adopted out or anything like that because of the age.
Mm.
So I had to come to grips with, okay, what would have happened to him,
Yeah.
if I passed away. And
Mm.
then we think about kids. It's, you know, if you're married, there's a possibility if one person passes away, then the other, obviously the spouse keeps the kids. But what
Mm-hmm.
happens if both of you, you get in an accident, both of you are together, both of you die? What happens to your kids?
Right.
And again, willing and able to, because
Mm.
you could say, oh, I'm gonna, oh well, my mom is gonna take care of them, or my sister will take care of them, or my my best friend will take care of them, or however that works.
Mm-hmm.
But and that person may be willing, but are they able to? And then you think about, well, what happens if you have three kids,
Yeah.
and your sister has three kids of her own?
Mm-hmm.
Now she needs to think about space for them. She may need a bigger car.
Right.
you know there are more expenses. Food budget is going up, housing budget is going up, all of the things.
Mm.
So are you leaving something for that person to take care of your kids when that time comes? And then, I learned later on at some point with, someone was talking to me about a student who the mom passed away, the aunt became guardian,
Mm.
mom left insurance money, aunt enjoyed it, spent it at some point. When the kids got ready to go to college, it was like, oh, sorry, well, I don't have any more money. And so I talk about that as well. It's, you need to talk to someone in the legal profession who is, professional about this, and
Mm.
find out how can you also leave money for your kids for college, or when they get to a certain age, if they don't go to college, what happens to the money? And then
Right.
that way you're not burdening the person that's keeping them, but
Mm.
you're also considering what could happen if the person uses up the money, and there isn't any for your kids when they get older.
Yeah. No, again, all things to think about. So good points, good points, good
And
points.
I'll also add, so like, I have one of my grandsons is autistic.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you have an adult
Mm.
um, child who cannot technically take care of themselves?
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where you can't say, oh, yeah, well, I'll just pass them on to my sister, or I'll just pass them on to my mom. Those are conversations you need to have to
Mm,
make sure that whoever it is that they're capable of taking care of your loved one.
yeah. No, again, very, very needed, very meaningful conversations to have, because those are things that you need to think about um, and make some decisions on. So Delamore said, I buried both my parents and sat with them on what they wanted. Both my parents went through the hospice process. Having arrangements planned is better, and it takes stress off the loved ones you leave behind. Agreed,
Yes.
agreed, agreed.
Yes.
And then Alex said, any tips to encourage family and friends that are not willing to have this conversation?
Ooh. You know what? I think the conversation comes up really well is when someone passes away. Like, you
Mhm.
have a family member pass away. That's typically a good time to talk about it, especially if there was no preparation.
Yeah.
Um, and people would say, oh, well, like I know Delamar had mentioned her parents were in hospice. A lot of people don't get to that point. My
Yeah.
husband was under hospice care. Well, he did at-home hospice care, but with
Mm,
the tumor that he had, it it went to his was hitting on his brain. So temporary or short-term memory was gone. You couldn't have that conversation
mm-hmm.
then, So
Right.
it's one of those things where it's going to take a lot of push from you, Alexandria, to have those conversations. And
Mm.
we're family, so if you need me to have start that conversation, let me know, and we could have a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
We could have a Zoom
Very
meeting.
good. Well, nice. And then the last thing that you and I talked about were letters to family and friends. So just
Yes.
talk around that for a little bit.
Well, when I did a grief group, maybe a month or two after Byron passed. And one of the things they got us to do was write a letter to our spouses. And I thought that was very therapeutic. I felt that I could share my heart with him. We had the choice of burning it at the end or keeping it. I decided that I would keep it. And then in another grief group that I'm on Facebook, one of the ladies had decided that it would be a good idea for us to write letters that we think our spouses would have written to us at certain times. So, for example, I wrote one for what it said, read this when you need a hug, right? Or read this when you're moving out of your home. Read this when you're thinking about a new relationship, whatever it was. And so we were writing these letters in our spouse's voices, kind of with the thought of what he or she would have said to us in that moment. And so when I was doing this, I thought, well, why wouldn't it be a great idea for you, as you're creating your journal, to write that letter to your spouse, write that letter to your kids, your younger kids, write the letters to your adult kids, and whoever else, where you're sharing your heart with them. And then that way, you can decide how you want to do it. If you want to say, to my wife, do do I even want you to consider dating someone else, or giving that person the freedom to date someone else at some point in time, and so that they're not feeling like, oh, because I've heard women say, I feel like I'm cheating on my husband if they look at dating someone else, right? So it's give maybe that's something you want to write about. Maybe you want to say, open this letter up a year later, on
Mm,
my anniversary. Whatever it is, you are writing exactly what it is that you want your loved one to know when the time comes. And I think that's a great gift in and of itself, because a year later, 6 months later, a year later, I know from personally for me, when I think about, well, I can't hear his voice anymore. Um, I can't, like I'm going through my day and I'm like, oh, I want to text him. And then you remember, oh yeah, I can't do that. So
Mm,
I think writing some of those letters would be good for your spouse, for your kids, because in those moments when they need you and they can't have those conversations with you, they can always go back and, you think about when you're reading something, you hear that person's voice reading it to you. And for me, I thought that that would be a great gift to give to someone. So
mm.
I put it in there as well.
Yeah. No, that's good. I really like that as a tip, a technique or tool, or I don't know what to call it, but something that you can use to um, kind of hold near and dear to you as it relates to your loved one.
Yeah,
So,
it's like the voicemail that you keep,
exactly,
or a
exactly.
video.
Yeah,
I realized when I closed out Byron's phone, I lost the voicemails.
yeah.
And but then I found a video uh I had done with him cooking, and he was, cooking and talking and all that stuff. And when it popped up, and obviously I got emotional initially,
Uh-huh.
but it was like, oh, okay, I can hear his voice. So
Right.
I can pull that up every once in a while and listen to his voice.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing with a letter.
Okay. Nice. All right. Alex said good stuff. Night nurse Natasha said, sorry I'm late, Margo. It's okay. We glad you're here. And Tracy said, this is great information. My younger brother who lived in South Carolina died. We don't know how to proceed. We, the siblings, are the only heirs. We are all on a mission to leave instructions.
Yeah. When you go through it, I
Mhm.
think it makes it so much easier to work on it,
Yeah.
because like in that situation, because sometimes people say, well, I'm single and I don't have any kids, but you still have things, someone still has to make some
Man-
type of preparation for you.
Manage that stuff.
Yes.
Trust and believe.
Yes. And you don't want someone to just go through and haul everything in the garbage, right?
Mm,
There are things that you may think is valuable. It may not be financially or monetarily valuable, but you may have that one thing that like, let's say for example, you had a fishing rod that maybe it's something that you want your young son or your brother, you and your brother will go fishing together, and you
mhm.
say, oh, okay, well, hey, I'd like him to keep the fishing rod, you know, um, and there's no arguments over that, because you've already said, I want him to keep the fishing rod. And
Right.
so he comes in and he takes a fishing rod
Mhm.
without any arguments about it.
Right. Right, right, right. All right. Yo-Yo said their voice is so important. I have a few voicemails as well. Yes, 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 yes. All right. Well, I think we have covered everything. Is there anything I missed?
No, I mean, I did have I have a checklist in the back
Okay.
as well. And the checklist is more obviously for the person that's going through the process, like simple things like call Social Security, if it's a spouse, contact the minister or, religious leader,
Mm-hmm.
contact Social Security, locate and secure the will, notify life insurance company. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a veteran, notify Veterans Administration to find out what things, if there are benefits or anything like that that you need to know about. Change names on joint accounts, change the beneficiaries, because again, if it was a spouse, you were the beneficiary. Now you need to figure out who will be the beneficiary on your accounts. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I put all of my accounts, made Tanya my beneficiary, so I did not have to think about it.
Yeah.
And if something happens, she goes directly to the bank account, sign her name, and do whatever needs to be done.
Mm.
And there's no, okay, I have to figure it out. I have to wait, going through the process of probate, arguing over anything. Now, obviously, I only have one child,
Right.
so it made so the stress or chaos is a
You're
little
right.
bit easier.
Right. Right.
But you know, if you have more than one kids, you may want to think about that as well. But so the checklist, and it's not an all inclusive, but it's just
Right.
some
It's a
of the little things that as you're going through the process, you're like, oh, oh, I need to call this person, or I need to do this, or I need to do that.
Yeah.
And, and as you go through, it's easier to see a checklist so that you're not trying to remember all of these things, because depending on, like, I know I didn't know about widow brain
Oh.
until Byron passed. And it was like, okay, I was concerned. I mean, I went to my doctor and like, hey, listen, I can't remember anything.
Mm.
And she was like, oh, she wasn't really that concerned. I talked to my counselor about it, and she wasn't that concerned. It was like, oh, that's widow brain. Eventually it will go away.
Mm.
But sometimes I still have to write checklists, because there are things that I'm like, oh, I was supposed to do this morning and I totally forget about it. So
Wow.
I think having the checklist would be great as well.
Yes. So get the book. Get the book. All right. We got a few more folks that have joined us late, and I'm glad you all are here. But, you can always catch the replay for what we talked about previously. Tamika Coleman, she said, my husband told me that if something happens to him and he is suffering, just pull the plug. Sir, I won't be ready when that time comes, which, if that's the case, Tamika, is all the more reason why you need to get this book and start planning.
Yes. I mean, we talked about the do not resuscitate and all that stuff in advance. My thing was always give the Lord a little bit of time to work his magic. But if he decides that he doesn't want to do it, that's fine. But I told them I don't want to be on life support for a long period of time, but still give the Lord some time.
Right.
I believe miracles happen at the last minute.
Yes.
So give him some time. But yeah, you definitely will want to have the conversation.
Absolutely. You want to.
And when the time comes, I mean, I don't think we're ever totally ready, but
No.
if you know that you have to make that decision so that your husband isn't suffering, you'll do it.
Yes. Yes. Ishmael Rents, my FAMU freshman brother out of Gainesville, he said, this goes into an overall challenge so many of us suffer from: avoidance of uncomfortable conversations to our unfortunate detriment. It's imperative these conversations. Yes, Ish, that's why we having it on Conversations with Nicole. Imperative these conversations are had. It is much worse not having all these affairs laid and planned out. Agreed.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you for being here, Ish. Let's see. Priscilla, John Louis, very good information. So Priscilla has a podcast, My Favorite Girl Caregiver Corner podcast. She cares for her mother, who has, I believe it's Alzheimer's. And so she's actually preparing I think it's a caregivers conference coming up on I believe it's June 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. I'm moderating the panel discussion, but y'all check her out because she has a lot of great caregiver information, because she has been caring for her mother for quite some time now. So Priscilla, thank you for being here. She said the things that many don't think about or know. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's see who else we have here. Ish. All right, we got that part. Alex said LOL and give the Lord some time. Yes, give him some time. Don't put it right away. Give me a little bit of time, because you just never know. Just never know. Sharice, I recently created a list of my life insurance policy information to work and outside of work for my children and family. I listed the policy number and contact information to make things easy for them. Absolutely. Yes.
And if you have the contracts, keep the contracts where they let them know where those contracts are as well. Because I mean, for me, insurance companies are insurance companies. and as much as they like selling you those insurances, they don't necessarily like paying them out. It took me 6 months to get insurance proceeds for Byron. So keep the contracts, because at least if they have a signed copy of something, if someone comes in and says something different.
Gotcha. All right. Tamika, put some Junkanoo music and my pinky toe will start moving. Listen here. Don't you start with the Junkanoo. Listen, where's my whistle?
Listen, 242 in the house.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Great information, my sister. And
Thank you.
thank you, Shay. Priscilla said correct. So she was saying it's an Alzheimer's awareness and education one day conference. So follow her, connect with her, because it's gonna be a great conference. Brittany, awesome convo. Thank you for being here, Brittany. Let's see. Help Richardson, agree. Alex, Sharice, thank you. All right. So we are over time, but let me give you an opportunity to tell folks how they can connect with you and again share the book, and I'll put the link up as well.
Okay. So on both Facebook and Instagram, I am author Margo Thomas. Easy. Margo Thomas, the author. And you'll find me there. I also have a book, a grief group. Well, it's a grief page on Facebook. And Lord, I can't tell you what the name of it. I did say Widow's Brain. So I can't even remember the name, but I will share it in the comments. And let's see. So we have the link that I'm still doing pre-orders for the book. I will autograph them, send a little surprise that comes along with it. And then when the book comes out on Amazon on June 9th. And so if you don't pre-order it, you can always get it from there. If you want an autographed copy, reach out to me and I will get an autographed copy to you.
All right, very good. Thank you much. And again, the name of the book is I Wish I Had Time, End of Life Planner. There's the link so you can pre-order. It will be released on this coming Sunday, June 9th. So again, get a copy. It's just gonna make things easier, and maybe it'll help you, especially those of you who've been on the live that have just been like, I don't really want to have this conversation. So maybe this will help make it easier for you because she's got a checklist. She's got the things that you need to gather, so that you'll be prepared, right? Be prepared. Be prepared. Okay, Valencia Scott, love you, Margo.
Hey, V.
All right. I'm just listening. Great words. Thank you, Marcella. Paulette Mason, informative. Yes, thank you, thank you. Facebook, prepare for college.
That's my Facebook page.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. All right. Look, Alex is your
Listen, she's like
your wing woman tonight. Here in there. Appreciate you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Indeed. All right. Priscilla, thank you for this much needed conversation. You are so welcome. Our pleasure. Let's keep this conversation going, y'all. Please,
Yes.
please, please. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. We need to be prepared. We need to do as much as we can to prepare as much as we can. All right. Marcus, thank you much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Alex, giving you some love, Alex. help Richardson giving Alex some love. Love it. For those of you who are new to this platform too, I want to invite you to subscribe to Conversations with Nicole. We are live here on Mondays and Wednesdays. Our focus is on mental health and wellness, primarily in Black and Brown communities. But I feel like this is part of wellness. This is Wellness Wednesday, and having those end of life plans together is part of wellness. Not only for you, but also for your loved ones, whether you are the deceased or they are the deceased. So again, let's keep this going. And y'all follow Margo. Follow, connect with her, and get the book. Get the book. Get the book. Yes, get the book. All right. Philippa, good information.
Thanks, Billy.
Yes. Let's see. Never thought about side for me.
That's another 242.
All right, 242. Okay, here we go. Grandma
Sure.
checking in. Indeed, Valencia certainly is part of wellness. Yes. Agreed. Great job, ladies. Thank you so much. Being massive. Y'all showed up tonight. Look, I love it. I appreciate it. Y'all come back next Monday and Wednesday because we'll be right here.
Yes. The conversations are really good.
Conversations keep going. Y'all subscribe and look at some of those videos. Play them. Look, play them. We just need you to play them. All right. All hearts and mind are clear. We're going to wrap it on up. Anything
All
else?
right. No, that is it. Thank you very much for agreeing to interview me on your platform
Absolutely.
and helping me get the word out about the planner.
My pleasure. All right, y'all. Have a good weekend, a good rest of the week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.